Pace, frați și surori. Mulțumesc că am putut să vin aici și sunt foarte fericit că pot să vin aici să vorbesc cuvântul lui Dumnezeu. Before I go into the word, I just want to talk about a particular. When trying to find what I was going to talk about today, I was looking into many different things, and one of the things that came up was honestly something that I was looking for is thankfulness. And it's something that I was going through and looking. I thought I was going to be talking about thankfulness today, but as I was going through the word and all that, I started thinking thankfulness is something I want to talk a little bit more into, and I would like more time, and I'm going to put more in depth, and so that's something I'm going to say for another day. But as I was going through and looking for things to use for thankfulness, I started reading some of the parables that Jesus was talking about. And one of the parables I ended up going to and reading it again and again was the rich man and Lazarus. As to me, it was like a parable that, I don't know, for some reason, it kind of just spoke to me that night. And there's a parable that I kind of sat there and I decided, why not, let's talk about the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. So if we were to open the Bible to Luke chapter 16, verses 19 through 31, it says, there was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen, and lived in luxury every day. At his gate was laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores and longing to eat what fell on the rich man's table. Even the dogs came and licked his sores. The time came when the beggar died, and the angels carried him to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, there he was in torment. He looked up and saw Abraham far away, with Lazarus by his side. So he called to him, Father Abraham, have pity on me, and send Lazarus to dip the tip of the finger in the water and cool my tongue, because I am in agony in this fire. But Abraham replied, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, while Lazarus received the bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. And besides this, between us, a great chasm has been set up in place, so that those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross over from there to us. He answered, Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my family, for I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them, so that they will not also come to this place of torment. Abraham replied, They have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them. No, Father Abraham, he said, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent. He said to him, If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead. Amen. Please be seated. I was reading these things, right? And as you're going through and reading, you see this rich man, right? And he's wearing this fine linen. He's wearing this purple robe. And you see, purple back then was a color of royalty. It was a color that you were someone special, that you were important. So if you wore purple at the time, because it was very expensive fabric, you were seen as important and special. And so you really had to be a rich man in order to afford this thing. And then you have Lazarus over here, right? Lazarus is this man, this beggar, this person who's sitting here. He's literally begging for food and literally just dreams of eating the crumbs or eating just what the rich man will throw away. And then when you read these things, it makes you think, then who is really blessed? Who over here between the rich man and Lazarus is blessed? Because you see these two different people. You see one who is nice. He has everything possibly. He's rich. He's standing. He's comfortable. While you have Lazarus, this beggar who's literally has sores all over his body and he's suffering. So when you just see it from this perspective, you look at it front and you would think, oh, the rich man is the blessed one. God has blessed the rich man beyond belief. That's why he's comfortable. That's why that. But Lazarus, on the other hand, you would think maybe he did something wrong, or just life isn't going this way. So he must be, God must be punishing him for something, right? But that's the thing, right? But that's the thing is when they die, you start to see something else. All of a sudden, you see that Lazarus gets pulled by the angels and he gets taken to Abraham, while this rich man is buried and he's sentenced to Hades. He's sentenced to hell. And you sit there, it's like, what happened? How did that happen? How in the world does a man who's literally begging for food over there, how does he go to heaven while this man who is literally sitting there, you thought was blessed by God, how in the world does he go to hell? How does that happen? What happened in their lives that caused this to happen to them? Well, you see, the reason it's important to look at this thing, because it shows something, right? It ends up showing that God does not look at how much money we have. He doesn't look at the things that we possess. He doesn't look at those things because none of that matters to him. None of that matters at all. You see, what actually matters is our souls and what we have inside and the things that we do that is for God. You know, another way I started looking at this, if we go to Matthew 10, verse 28, where it says, "Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both the soul and the body in hell." And the reason I want to talk about that in particular is because we can truly see this an example between Lazarus and the rich man. See, the rich man is somebody who was probably living a comfortable life. He probably maybe was doing some things. He probably didn't care too much about what the Lord wanted or what the Lord wanted to do, right? He was probably thinking he cared more probably what people thought of him, what people thought. So he probably wanted to please more people than anything. While Lazarus, not having anything, all that, probably put more trust in God and had relied on him, was probably thankful and praying to him. And you can see this in the way in where they ended up, where the rich man ended up in hell while Lazarus ended up in heaven. And another thing that I found very interesting is you see the rich man call Abraham Father Abraham. And it shows that he knew who Abraham was. And again, this is just a parable, so maybe it's going into a different thing. But as far as I can see, right, you can see that this rich man knew who Abraham was. And it started making me think, was the rich man a Jew as well? Did he know who Abraham was? If he understood these things, why did he end up here? That's because he got very comfortable. He got comfortable with the life he was living. Maybe he was giving money to the church, but not giving everything he could. Maybe he was doing all these things to make himself look good. That's why he's wearing purple, to show off, to show how important he is, to show people who he is. And then another thing I noticed as well is when you read, right, you have the rich man, but his name is never brought up. It's just rich man. While Lazarus is actually someone who is named in the Bible. You can see him, and he has a name. And it was something I was thinking about. Why is that? Why in the world do we see Lazarus have a name, but the rich man does not? Why is that the case? It makes no sense. Why wouldn't the rich man have his own name either? And there's two different things I was thinking that could probably go into it. And so, if we go into Matthew 7, verses 21 through 23, it says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' I will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of God the Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me that day, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform many miracles?' Then I will tell them plainly, 'I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers.'" One thing I thought about, the one thing I started thinking about, maybe the reason that he was not named is because just like that, God did not know this man. If he did not live a life for Christ, if he did not live his life for God, why would he know who he is? Maybe that's why he doesn't have the name, and Lazarus does, because since Lazarus lived a godly life and someone that relied on God and went to God, maybe that's why Lazarus has a name and the rich man does not. But another thing came to my mind of why maybe the rich man doesn't have a name and Lazarus does. And the thing that came to mind was maybe the reason the rich man doesn't have a name is because anyone can be in that position. Maybe we can say Anthony. Maybe we can say that it was Coco. Maybe we can say it was Petro. Maybe we can say anybody, because anybody can fit the name of the rich man. But not everyone can fit the name of Lazarus. You see, to want to serve God, you have to maybe go through things. Maybe you have to go through suffering. Maybe you have to go through many different trials, right? And some people don't want to do that thing. They don't want to have to go through that. And they would rather be the rich man, comfortable, not having to worry about anything. Their life is set. They're there. They don't have any problems to worry about. And that's because, what is to worry about? You can pay for everything you need. You have all the food. You have all the medicine. There's no reason to rely on God when you already have everything. While Lazarus, not having anything at all, probably had to rely on God, pray to God, ask for God, and that made him closer to God. And maybe that's why he went to heaven, and maybe that's why the rich man did not. And again, I was thinking that to me is something to me at least makes sense to me, is that you can replace the rich man with anybody. There was a movie I ended up watching one time. My dad ended up taking me to the film. We went to the movie together, and the movie's called God's Not Dead. It was a very, very lovely film, right? But there was one thing about the film. There's certain things I forget about the film from time to time, but there's one thing I never forget. And I brought this quote up like a couple other times in other predicas I've done, but to me it's a quote that's so important because it truly shows how people kind of see the world, right? How people can be comfortable and yet still live in sin. And it was a quote in particular where you have this son, he goes to his grandmother, and this grandma has Parkinson's. She doesn't really remember anything. Her memory goes away so often, and it just has troubles. And he goes to her and is like, look at you. You praise God, you have God in your life, and yet look at you, you're suffering. And then you look at me, I'm living my life free, I'm living my life great. I'm having a great time. I'm not a great person, but look, I have no troubles, I have no problems. And then what was interesting is this is when the grandma finally decided to say something, and this is what she said. She said, sometimes the devil allows people to live a life free of trouble because he doesn't want them turning to God. Their sin is like a jail cell, except it is all nice and comfy, and there doesn't seem to be any reason to leave. The doors are wide open till one day time runs out and the cell door slams shut, and suddenly it's too late. To me, this was the exact perfect way that describes Lazarus and the rich man. The rich man is living a comfortable life. He has purple clothes. He seems so important. And maybe the people of the world know him, but God doesn't know him. And so he's sitting there nice and comfy, living his life of sin, because he doesn't see any reason to leave. What is there to go when you already have everything you need in that jail cell? You got food you can eat every day. You got all this. It's so relaxing and comforting. But then one day that door got shut. And you know what he started realizing? He's in a fire. There's fire all around him. And all of a sudden, he's starting to suffer. He's suffering like never before. And this, you can even see this when he literally is begging. He's begging Abraham just to dip his finger for a drop of water. This man who had everything before, didn't beg for any of it, was now begging just for a drop of water. Because now even that drop of water was now a blessing to him. That is the difference between hell and heaven, where even a drop of water, this man who had everything on earth once, was now just begging just for a single drop. Maybe this is what Lazarus was begging back in the day. And now he's the one having to beg for that. But as God said, there's a time. And Abraham was saying, you had all the good things on earth. But now that time is up. He chose the path. He went on the path. He went on the path of comfort and decided to stay in it. While Lazarus was there with sores, while Lazarus was there suffering, while Lazarus was there maybe in pain some days, starving. And as you can see, when he died, no one cared for him. He died probably on the street. No one buried him. People buried the rich man. But that's exactly what's so important to see. Because sometimes the struggles are blessings. Sometimes you may have to go through things that you may not want to. Maybe you have to go through maybe you have to go through even cancer. Maybe you have to go through these things. Maybe you have to go to jail. Maybe you have to go through many different problems and troubles. The reason I say that is because something I've started to see a lot, especially if you look at people, missionaries who go to jail. You know what they say a lot of times? That they would go right back to jail if they were free. And you know why that is? It's because those times when they were suffering there, when they were on their own, you know what was there? They were praising God. They were worshiping God, and God was with them the whole time. You see, they were closer to God than ever before. And a lot of times that might happen through suffering. I'm not saying you're going to have to suffer for it. But a lot of the times when you read through the Bible, or when you go through, where in the Bible do you not see someone have to go through problems or troubles or go through some suffering in order to be closer to God or to be with God? You have to go through maybe some trouble. Maybe you have to go through problems. Maybe all this. Having a life of just pure comfort doesn't mean you're saved or that God is there. Maybe that's just the devil not wanting you to leave that area. Sometimes we might have to go through these things, but those things are truly blessings in disguise and things that we may not even understand yet. But God knows better than any of us what those really mean and how he builds up from it. So the final thing that was really talked about, in particular about this, is when you see that the rich man is begging to send Lazarus or begging for him to go there and save his brothers. You see, we have a lifetime. And a lifetime could mean anything. It could mean 10 years. It could mean 100 years. It could mean 15 years. It could mean 20 years. It could mean anything. That's what a lifetime is here on earth. And in that lifetime, we have choices we can make. We can go tell our brothers and sisters that Jesus is going to come one day. We can go tell them about salvation, all that, or we can sit back and just let life go by. We have a time frame of how long we can tell people about God and when he can come and all that. And you can see this rich man, again, it's only a parable, but even then, this rich man regrets not telling his brothers and sisters. He literally, he wants to tell them right now, but he can't because time has run out. That time is gone. He doesn't have that choice anymore. It's done. We have a limited amount of time before our lives end. We may not know when it is today. It could be tomorrow. It could be 20 years from now. But it could be any second. And in that time, we have to decide, are we going to tell people about Christ? Or are we just going to sit back and let life play along? And that is the choices that we have to make. That is all I have to say for today. Thank you.